Thank you, everybody, for being on this Entra Suite training. It's going to be an exciting 2 days with you. I'm Sandhana Krishnan. I'm part of the Security Solution Area global team focused on the partner strategy, and I'll be hosting these 2 days. It's an honor and a pleasure. Really welcome. So there will be some logistic and important news that I'm sharing, especially on the agenda. We got fantastic content for you. So I will go through it and we build on that. Let's make it interactive. Some of the logistic information, though very important, it's a NDA training. So really the partners, hopefully you get all signed the NDA. Please do not blog anything outside. No on LinkedIn, no whatever social network. So it's literally for you guys to be absolutely well trained. So a lot of good content is going to be shared. Thank you very much in advance for respecting that. Then let's make these 2 days literally count for all of us. For sure, our objective is to make sure that the message is landing on the readiness, so that you guys are technically competent and ready with Microsoft Entra Suite. Then, of course, we want to build our common pipeline with customers, right? So we'll do everything we can to help you on that adventure. Please mute. Please mute your microphone. So I can't see all the speakers who's speaking. So if somebody can help me in the organization to mute, it would be great. Thank you very much. Then we'll go also on the deployment side. How do you initiate it, showcase, and accelerate? We'll give you a lot of content so that you can use it. So what can you expect from us? Speakers, we have aligned fantastic set of speakers from the product team, from the engineering team, and also from the field, and our best subject matter experts. The content will be deep, full of demos, use cases, and customer scenarios so that you can reuse it as well. The recording and all the content will be shared in a very reasonable time, hopefully in a week time. Your participation is key. Your question and answer engagement time is literally packaged in all the tracks, but as well at the end of the training, we'll go through the agenda, you will see it. The sessions are NDA, I kind of remind it. So please make sure that you respect it. Service will also share a QR code so that not only you can share your feedbacks during these 2 days, but so that we are connected as a community from now. So you will see during this my shop presentation that barcode. Please save it, but I will kind of remind it a couple of times. And we are literally attending from all over the world for this training. Thanks for that. So be respectful, but also enjoy it so that we have built this worldwide community all together. Please mute your mic. Partnering with Microsoft on the cybersecurity phase, this is an important one. We know from a cyber threat, a landscape perspective is continuously evolving. The sophistication increases every day. And these are influenced by global events, but as well as AI innovations, right? And you name it. Also, the change of the type of works, a lot of people working from home, etc. So from a Microsoft perspective, cybersecurity is a top priority for us. As a company, we invest a lot, and facing less than 30 billion password attacks per year, it makes sure that we make sure that this is really an important area we want to focus, especially on the securing identity is key for us. So Microsoft has got as well as a long history on this space, particularly on identity. So that makes a fantastic place for us to collaborate. So partnering becomes very important. We want definitely to help you greater revenue, of course, with all these opportunities shared. And also, we want to help you to become a strategic advisor for zero trust user access scenarios, starting with with all the Entra Suite portfolio, but as well as that will help you to maximize the impact on addressing all kind of use case and scenarios in security, like threat protection, data protection, etc. So it is a start, and we hope you'd use it. So how do we want to help you to build a successful Microsoft Entra Suite practice? Of course, I'm not going into the detail of the slides. For sure, we'll help you in the pre-sales readiness, in the technical readiness. We want you also to give some guidance on how do you want to land and expand finding the right opportunity and workload at a customer. build out your offerings, drive demand, and build pipeline, and also involve Microsoft Teams. There's a lot of acronyms, but Biras will come into the details. How do you involve account team units, specialty units, global black belts, partner development managers, and engineering? So you'll be connected, and we'll give you a recommendation. How do you stay connected with those people, important people, to be successful? We'll definitely help you to make the best proof of concept, how to pitch it, how to demo it right in front of the customer, how to deploy it. For sure, right? Once you have done the POC, you need to implement it properly. So we'll help you also, and we hope you guys get engaged in the previews of the product. It's a journey, right? It's a starting point here. We continually will invest, so there will be many private programs. So we hope that you will participate actively, provide feedbacks, share your wins, but as well as your losses, so that we share the insight with this community. With that, I want to go into the detail of the agenda of the 2 days. It's a packed agenda. We are on the first part, introducing the session. After that, you'll have our great speaker, Jan Duchesne, covering the Entra Suite overview, followed by Entra Suite scenarios will be covered by Stacy Quintana. So that will be finishing by 11:30. And we'll take a 10-minute break, and really ask you to respect the timing of the breaks because of the packed agenda. We want you to give also time back actually in the day, so that you can do maybe your work. So clearly the 10 minutes break will be short but useful. Please be respectful of your time. I'm also the bad guy of keeping the time. So thank you very much in advance. And then we'll finish by Entra ID governance deep dive session, which includes also verified ID. We'll have a couple of speakers there, Margaret Garcia and Sagar Sate. That will be the agenda for today. And then tomorrow we'll start at the same time, and we'll have the SSE day, the securing the service day, kicked off by Chiara Kalagaher. And then we'll have Peter covering us the Entra private access capabilities. And then Chiara will be back on covering the Entra internet access capabilities and deployment. After that, we'll take a short 10-minute break, and I'll come back and we talk more about the offerings, how partners can build offerings, how can you package it. We share some of the guidance and some of the best practice we are seeing, and we'll share again tons of content around the proof of concept in a box, and how you can go and just replicate that and build your differentiation factors on top of it. And then we will end up in a session which will not be recorded because it's the NDA, really NDA, and the product team will share openly with you the Entra Suite roadmap. We will we will not record it, and that portion the deck will be shared, but the recording will not be shared. And we are keeping 20 minutes of Q&A at the end, so that because it's a 2 days, which is a packed agenda, and we do know that you will have some questions. You can ask questions probably in the chat. A lot of those subject matter experts are watching. They're already on the call, and they will be helping you to answer during the sessions. But we still want to keep some time, quality time at the end, so that we capture your question. We will be capturing during the 2 days, and we will make a document frequently asked questions. And if there are questions which is not answered during these 2 days, please mute your mic. And even if the questions are not answered, we still capture those questions, and we come back to you, and we will share our answers. So please note the important reminders. All sessions will be recorded except the roadmap session. This will be all shared over email within a week, and then we can post your question on the Q&A at any time during the session. We'll be watching for it. I told you there is a barcode I'll be sharing. This is the time. This is if you want to request for assistance from a partner perspective, just click it, and it will come to us, and we will come back to you. Please bookmark it. It's not just for technical question. It will be for go-to-market. It will be around opportunities. It will be maybe deep product questions and maybe deployment blockers. So any question related to Entra Suite, I would say there's a huge team will be watching for it from now. So we will be capturing it, and we'll be coming back as a team to you. So it's an important URL for you to save it. And I will show it again. So I want to thank you for this listening to me for the introduction session. As I said, there's a huge set of speakers aligned for these 2 days and also a number of SMEs. And I want to thank especially at least two people, Sumi Venkataraman and Camila Martins from our CXC group, engineering groups. So many of you may already know them. They put a number of those content together, and also all our global black belts and product team specialists, but as well as some of my team members like Catherine Rooks and Frank Byrne, who are part of our team, who are focusing on partners who are also on the call and who will be kind of watching and helping you from today. Thank you very much. With that, I want to give the floor to Yann Duchesne.
Thank you, Sandana. Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen. Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, you can. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So my name is Yann Duchesne. I'm a GBB. So thank you, Sandana. So GBB, that's a dedicated team that is in charge of accelerating the business of our new solutions. So typically, Entra Suite is one of them, and we've got a dedicated team that is focusing on Entra Suite, and you'll hear my colleague Stacy later, who is also a GBB. So I'm covering France and Africa and Central Europe, so I'm covering a bunch of different regions. And today I'm in charge of doing this first overview of Entra Suite. So that will probably be the least technical session of the day, but it's very important to put things in perspective and to understand basically the Microsoft value proposition with Entra Suite. Okay, you'll see the details later today and tomorrow, but let's just do a step back and try to understand the problem that we are trying to fix here. So the big trends from last year, that's again something that you might be familiar with, but it's important because you'll see some of them have a direct impact on the solution that we are proposing as part of Entra ID. So first one, proliferation of identity. That's a standard trend. It has been like that since more than 10 years. We've got a number of identity and endpoints that continues to proliferate. Okay, so this is defining the attack surface. So the attack surface is getting bigger and bigger. And that's something that's making the challenge of securing access a little bit harder every single year. Okay, so that's the first aspect, which is proliferation of identity, making our job a bit more difficult. The number of apps, that's also linked to the first point, but the number of applications that employee access on average is 1,500. Okay, so that's a big number, right? When you think about how to manage access to this large number of applications, again, it raises a lot of questions about the best tool to do that, the best approach to do that, and how to scale, how to put things in, how to implement solutions that will be able to scale, because this number will be even bigger for 2025 and in the years to come. The third one is, of course, cybercrime. That's, again, usual, but it's very important. We, as Microsoft, we block 7,000 password-based attacks per second. That's what we did last year, okay, per second. So the attackers are getting better and better, okay, over time. That's quite obvious. But also they can rely on new techniques. They are also innovating. So typically that's the fourth one. We see a significant increase in token replay attacks. And that's something interesting that can be an eye opener for some of the SOC kind of SOC related partner. Is we used to focus a lot on password authentication, protecting identity, and so on. Now we are facing additional challenges because those sophisticated attacks are about stealing a token on a compromised device and reusing it somewhere else. So it has nothing to do with password and the authentication. So the attacker are acting a step after that. So that's again something we should think of, and there is solutions for that, and you'll see that in the coming sessions. So in that context, you are aware now with the Entra family. So that's a new name we've introduced about 2 years ago. As the cybersecurity portfolio of Microsoft is getting bigger and bigger every single year, putting together all the capabilities related to securing access was, I think, a way to clarify the portfolio. So basically, the Microsoft Entra is designed to host all the solutions that will provide way to simplify how you can secure access for any identity to any app and resource from anywhere. Okay, so that's the mantra of Entra, if I can say. Okay, so that's you can expect to have maybe additional solution that will enrich that portfolio. But for now, we've got, I think, quite rich offering as part of Entra that we can define in 4 different maturity stages. The first one, and that's the foundation, it's establishing zero trust access control. Okay, so it's securing identity, protecting identity by using MFA authentication, passwordless authentication, and having dynamic access policies. That's again the foundation. And that's something that most of our customers already have and that they are using on a daily basis as part of their Microsoft solutions. Okay, but that's the first pillar. The second one, which is the focus for this training, is secure access for your employees. Okay, and specifically for your employees, and that's very important because there is some concepts that cannot apply to someone that is not an employee, and we will see that in details. The third one is secure access to people that are not employees. So they can be partners, they can be customers, and it's all the B2B, B2C scenarios. And we've got very interesting capabilities here and some innovation as well. And that's again something that can be the next maturity stage. And the last one is secure access to any cloud. So cloud in a sense of infrastructure cloud. Okay, so all the Azure and equivalent environments. If we look at the solution, the current value proposition for the first pillar, so zero trust as a policy enforcement point, I would say, that's Entra ID P1. Okay, Entra ID P1, again, I said that's a foundation. That's something that most of our customers currently have. Okay, we get a big market penetration for Office 365 customers. Most of them are using Entra ID P1, so most of them are using conditional access policies, and that's basically probably the biggest zero trust engine available on the market right now. Okay, so we have to build on top of that foundation. That has been super successful in the past years, so we need to build on top of that. The second one is the topic of this training, so Entra Suite, and the intent is to protect access to anything, and we'll dig a little bit deeper. Secure access to customer and partners. You are already familiar with that. Obviously, it's external IDs. So there is 2 flavors of external IDs. One is B2B and the other one is B2C, so CIAM scenarios. And that's again something that can be an extension of what's available in Entra Suite. So there is some scenarios that we can cover with Entra Suite that are targeted for partners typically, when you need to have a tenant-to-tenant collaboration or to control access to your corporate resources to people that can be outside of your organizations. But it's dedicated solution for that. And the last one is workload identities. So all the non-human identities, so identities that you can associate with a resource in Azure or with a resource on-prem using some capabilities like Azure Arc and things like that. So it's basically defining a way to better protect resource-to-resource communication. Okay. access control. So let's focus on, sorry, I forgot Security Copilot, but Security Copilot is also a foundation for security investigation and also to automate some activities using GenAI. So let's focus on Entra Suite, who is the hot topic of today. So Entra Suite is based on 5 solutions. Okay, and again, I'm probably saying things that you are already familiar with, but it's important to just to again put things in perspective. So the first key solution is Entra ID governance, because that's the most obvious extension on top of Entra ID P1. Okay. In the past, customers typically use the third-party solution or even Microsoft Identity Manager to manage identity from AD to Entra ID and connected with a HR system or any other source of authority for identity. And the reality, and many of you might be familiar with it, it's really complex to implement, really complex to manage at scale. And it can be also super expensive. Okay, here we want to provide something that is fully integrated with Entra ID, because that's basically an extension of Entra ID P1, that is easier to manage, but that can be also pretty extensible. And that's also something important for you in terms of business opportunity, is that Entra ID governance is a solution that is super extensible. You can leverage things that we call custom extension. You can leverage many kind of capabilities to extend the platform. And that's, yeah, there's room for business here and a lot of opportunities for customers to make things that are aligned with their business needs. The second one is identity protection. So it's also part of Entra ID P2. So that's not something that is new. It's basically using risks in conditional access policies and providing a dashboard to facilitate investigation around identity threats. So that's typically things that are super interesting for both identity team to better protect access to resources and also for security operation center. So they can leverage all the great information that they can find in Entra ID protection to better understand what is happening around a specific authentication, a specific user. And again, that's something that extends Entra ID and access and conditional access to give this dynamic criteria, which is the risks calculated using our own threat intel, which is pretty unique on the market. Okay, so 2 obvious extensions of Entra ID as an identity platform. The third one is Verified ID. If you are not familiar with Verified ID, I'm convinced that there's also a lot of business opportunity for our dear partners. So Verified ID is an identity proofing solution. Okay, it's a platform that allows you to basically simplify end user experience while ensuring the best quality, the best assurance of some aspect of the user identity. So typically, when you are traveling in another country, you go to an hotel. The first thing they will ask you is to provide your passport. They will make a copy of it and they will store it somewhere with other papers, which is honestly in 2025, it's a disaster. We need to fix that. So Verified ID will allow users to prove some aspects of their identity without giving the full identity. So it's a zero knowledge proof approach using public key cryptography, and it's both much more secure, much more data conscious, and also it provides the best user experience. So there's a lot of solution to build on top of Verified ID. And the last 2 ones are private access, which is basically a solution to replace legacy VPNs and to give protected access to on-prem resources, private resources. Not only on-prem, it can be in cloud infrastructure, but yeah, private resources. And the last one is Entra Internet Access that can protect access to everything internet-based. Okay, so that's probably something that you are already familiar with. But what is important here is that think about all the solutions that customers have to stack today to get the same value proposition. They probably need, I don't know, a VPN solution, a proxy, or a secure web gateway, one identity governance solution, and maybe some additional manual tasks, and maybe some internal scripts and tooling for, I don't know, approval process and so on. Identity protection, they probably don't have anything similar to that. Verified ID, they are doing some paperwork to do that. So if you think about all the solutions and the processes to put in place, we are covering something that is big here, okay? So we can drastically simplify their life, reducing the complexity, reducing the operation costs, and also reducing the solution costs, okay? So that's basically the idea. We get those 5 products put together as an integrated solution. So that's why Entra Suite makes it easier to protect identities in a central platform. That's very important because I mentioned VPN, secure web gateway, other solution. That means that admins have to manipulate multiple consoles to get the complete view of the accesses that are allowed in the organization. Here you get everything in Entra ID, which make a big difference in terms of visibility and management at scale of the solution. Okay, so again, we want to protect for any employee from any location on any platform, and if it's a corporate or personal, and access to any kind of resources. It can be a web-based, a SaaS application, Microsoft solutions, obviously, but also on-prem solution as well. Okay, so that's something that is quite unique on the market when you think about it. Combining the identity-based access control as well as network-based access control in a central policy enforcement point is a key differentiator. So now let's focus on some of the key benefits they can get from that platform and from this unified approach. Okay, so we get unified conditional access, which is the first one, least privilege access, improve user experience, and reducing on-prem footprint. So let's focus on the first one, unified conditional access. Most of you might be familiar with conditional access. As I said, we see a great success in adoption of that capability. So, and the idea is to have basically, a solution, a central policy enforcement point. I use the policy enforcement point term. That's not something that you'll see in our documentation. That's a term that is used by the open group. Okay, so the open group is industry agnostic. Okay, we are contributing to the open group, but as many other vendors, and they are defining basically the typical architecture of zero trust. So there's a lot of interesting content they publish. One of them is the zero trust architecture, and this zero trust architecture define a central policy enforcement point, and that's more or less what we are doing with conditional access. So with our security service edge, sorry, there is some noise. If you can mute your mic, please. So if you think about our security service edge, so private access and internet access, those are extending. Can someone mute the mic that is making some noise? Thank you. So we are extending conditional access with new conditions and new controls that are mostly network-based. Okay, so the first example of that is compliant network. So we can now ensure that the connection is coming from a global secure access client. Okay, so from a client that we manage that has the agent installed and that the traffic is going through our own network. So that's a new criteria that is interesting when you think about the condition that you want to use in conditional access. Same for we've added typically some conditions. We also we've added some resources. So on-prem resources. You will see all the on-prem resources that you can publish in Entra ID in your conditional access rules. So you can define the same conditional access rules that you are using today for Office 365 or any SaaS application. You can do the same for on-prem based application. Okay, so you get a sensitive file share that is accessible from corporate devices. You can put a conditional access policy on top of that to ensure that this sensitive file share will be accessible only from a compliant network, only from a managed device, and maybe you want to trigger MFA or phishing proof authentication method before accessing this on-prem file share. Okay, so that's basically this extension of conditional access that includes some network-based controls. So you get it. We got private access for on-prem and private resources, so ZTNA solution, and internet access for any internet-based resources, SaaS application, as well as web categories and URLs. We also mentioned, I mentioned identity protection. That's, again, a key differentiator. Again, that's not something new. You are probably familiar with it. But there's obviously the risk-based conditional access that can be implemented that brings a lot of value here. But there's also this investigation dashboard that can be super helpful to understand what's happening, to make some investigation around identity. So if you get some managed services, that's definitely something to look at because it can significantly help you to be more efficient and better understand what is happening. So that was the first key benefit. The second one is ensure least privilege access. So what we want to improve here is maybe the situation that we are all familiar with AD, typically. In typical Active Directory environment that is probably 20 or 25 years old, there's a lot of technical debt. So this technical debt includes some privileges, access permissions, group membership, things that over time we tend to stack and not really remove. So if you've been for 20 years in the same organization, you might expect to be part of some security groups that are not relevant anymore, and you might expect to have some access that you don't typically need in your role, and that's something we need to fix. So we think that with an Entra ID based approach, we can do a better job in terms of reducing the privileges. So by connecting all the solutions with Entra ID from a governance standpoint, we can better manage the privileges over time. So we get access reviews to ensure that someone will review the privileges on a monthly, quarterly basis. So that's one. We also have some role management. So we call that access packages, and you'll see that in detail in the next presentation. But access packages can also be used to give access for a limited period of time for a specific project, for a specific role that is time limited, or for just-in-time access, typically. So those are capabilities that can really easily reduce this permission that we stack over time. And that requires all the system to be connected together. So we see here on that picture that AD is connected to Entra ID, so that's a typical hybrid environment, connected to the HR system and maybe other identity provider, and connected to SaaS enterprise application as well as on-prem based application. Okay, so that's this identity governance capability will allow us to better control those privileges over time. And one example of that is by using lifecycle workflow. So typically in Entra ID governance, you can create workflows to basically automate a bunch of tasks. So we see here an example. If someone is moving from marketing to another department, so the trigger of the workflow will be the department. So here the value will be finance. If you are moving to the finance department, then we want to automate a bunch of tasks. Okay, and those tasks can be a lot of tasks that are predefined in Entra. So typically requesting access to an access package. I'm joining the finance department. I'm supposed to have access to all the access packages related to finance. So here I can choose the relevant access packages. Okay, so you see we can automate this and have automatically, when people are moving from one role to another, we give them the relevant permission, and we remove the permission that are not relevant anymore. And we can automate that. Okay, and so that's this plus access reviews plus on-demand access packages. This can simplify the management of the access and ensure that people have only the right access at the right time for the right purpose. Okay, so we can also extend that to anything that is that can be a web category, an FQDN, an on-prem resource, or also a specific tenant. You can restrict what tenant can be accessible based on those access requests. Okay, so that's very flexible, and it can extend to a lot of business-related scenario. Next one is user experience. In cybersecurity, we tend to make the user experience a nightmare, to be honest. So with flexible identity management, we are convinced that we've got an opportunity to make their life easier. So the first example of that is, of course, a passwordless MFA authentication that can improve user experience. So I cannot live without Windows Hello for Business, to be honest. But as part of the access to corporate resources, employees have access to the MyApps portal. And through this MyApps portal, they've got a unified view of all the resources that they are supposed to access to. So they can see the on-prem based application in that portal as soon as this application is declared in Entra ID. And they can also make some requests in terms of access. So there is this My Access portal, which is a subset of the MyApps portal, where people can make requests to access an access package. So we can see here, that person make a request to access a file share, is prompted for MFA to access that file share because that's a sensitive file share. Okay, he got access to the file share, probably for a limited period of time. Okay, so this user experience going through the MyApps portal to ask a specific request to access a resource, we see a big adoption of that. Customers really love that, getting a very simplified access request platform through MyApps. What also can improve the user experience is what I mentioned earlier, is verified ID. Okay, I need to prove that I'm a Microsoft employee. Today, I can do that by just scanning a QR code. So the user experience is very straightforward, and that's what I want to do. Okay, if I'm going to a store and where a Microsoft employee have a discount, that's all I want to prove that I'm an employee. Okay, and you can leverage the same in customers' application or in the access request to access packages. Okay, so that's again something that we are convinced is associated with a lot of business opportunities. Last but not least is reducing the on-prem footprint. When you think about all the capabilities that we can replace with Entra ID, with Entra Suite, there is a lot of solutions that we can first simplify but also remove. Okay, we are not saying that we can get rid of on-prem based resources, but we can reduce that footprint, and that's typically something we tend to do with AD. Okay, AD it's a solution from the past. We should not rely on AD for new application and new services. We should rely on Entra ID. But there is an existing footprint, and how can we simplify that? One example of that is leveraging Entra ID governance. So we can move the center of gravity of identity management from on-prem to the cloud, and at some point making AD kind of a slave directory for the limited application footprint that is still required. Okay, but for other applications, legacy VPN, secure web gateway, firewall, paper-based identity verification, please improve that. We've got a huge opportunity here, and for each of those topics, customer will need your support. First to understand the value, then to test it, then to deploy it, and maybe to operate over time. Okay, so that's the key benefits we see as part of Entra Suite. And that's it for me. If you get any question, put them in the chat, and I will be happy to answer those. Thank you very much, and I will hand over to my colleague Stacy.
Thank you very much, Jan. Yes, indeed, there are some questions, but thank you very much for this great overview. And if you can have a look on the question, I know that some people are answering. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
And you're welcome to stay, of course. Happy to welcome Stacy. She's already on board. And Stacy, please share your deck from your side.
I will indeed. Thanks, Sandana. Present. That should be coming through. There we go. Do we have that, Sandana? Can we see?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Stacey Quintana. I'm a global black belt here at Microsoft, the same role and same team as Jan that came in before. So lovely to see so many of you on the call. I think this is the most I've ever presented to. So I'm going to get going. We're going to have a look at a few demos today. So these are really about, there's three scenarios that I'm going to talk to you about today. The first one that I'm going to talk to you about is streamlining employee onboarding. So we'll go through a few slides. We'll talk a little bit about how we do that with the product itself, and then we'll just go into a little demo as well, just to show you how it actually works in the portal. So as we've discussed, earlier today in the keynote, the Microsoft Entra Suite is really what is helping our customers to be able to simplify that user experience. It doesn't matter what that user is trying to access in terms of the resources or from where they're trying to access as well. So it can be literally anywhere. We can work with the products to improve that user experience and really to apply that Zero Trust foundation around least privileged access with the tools such as ID governance and also using Verified ID face check to help with reassurance around who that identity is that's trying to access our resources as well. So what we're looking at here is more of a kind of an architectural, a high-level architectural view of all the products that sit within the Entra Suite itself. The products included in the suite. So there were some questions in the chat about like sort of PIM and where that sits. So there are some E5 capabilities that get included in some of the licensing, but the actual suite itself is the newer capabilities, the more advanced capabilities that give our customers the ability to achieve a zero trust network access scenario across their environment. So the products included in the suite itself are really starting from identity and access lifecycle management. So looking at how we can streamline onboarding of new users, how we can govern access for employees as well over time. So with Verified ID and Entra ID governance. And then the network piece, which is about how we secure access to any application. It doesn't matter where that application is, can be in the cloud, could be on premise, could even be a file share on premise. It really doesn't matter, and how we apply risk-based policies to that access as well. So it's very granular access with risk-based policies applied as well. Who is the identity? What is the device they're coming in from? Is it healthy? How much access should we be giving them based on who they are and the risk around that particular identity? So in this session, to begin with, we're going to focus on the streamlining and the onboarding of new users, and that's primarily with two of the first solutions, which are Microsoft Entra Verified ID and Microsoft Entra ID Governance. So before I just jump into the demo, these are the steps that I'm going to take you through today. So this is really about how we onboard new employees with the Microsoft Entra Suite to make sure that they are, active from the very moment that they join the business, that they can be productive from the second they join the business, and they can be secure as well, more importantly. Can everybody please mute themselves? I can hear some coughing and some sniffing. Thank you.
Simon.
So we're going to highlight how easy it is to utilize the new capabilities that we've got within the product stack. So the lifecycle workflows, that's really all about that joiner, that mover, that leaver process within a customer's organization, and look at how that lifecycle workflow can help bundle specific tasks that we want to execute for a user that might be joining, moving, or leaving from the business, and how we can do something quite simple like enabling an account when somebody joins the business, and also how we can make that workflow look quite complex depending on what we want to do. We'll dive into a little bit around entitlement management as well. So, how we can help IT admins, how we can help bundle access of resources. So that might be applications, it might be teams, it might be groups. And we'll use entitlement management to create access packages that you assign to and allow users to be able to request levels of access to resources with necessary approval processes applied around that as well. And then in the last part of the demo, we're going to show you a little bit around the new privacy respecting high assurance face check capability within Verified ID. And yeah, let's go for the demo, I think. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to dive into my demo screen. So I'll just launch this. Okay. Right, so stop sharing that, and then I'm going to reshare my screen. Should be. Too many screens. There we go. Okay, so everybody should be able to see that.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so this here is the portal. So this is really, if you are in the portal, this is looking to really simplify, really give you the ability to be able to have access to configure these solutions really, really easily. So what we want to do based on the scenario that we've just looked at is have an overview of the actual environment that we're looking at from a verified ID perspective. So starting at that onboarding the user and that assurance that the user is who they say they are from an admin perspective. So if we go into Verified ID and we take a look at the overview, as you've already learned, Verified ID is really about, how can we implement verifiable credentials in an open standard that will enable us to have a real-time identity verification of this is a user, they are who they say they are, but respecting that user's privacy at the same time. So as an admin, to get started, all you have to do is click on Get Started. Fairly self-explanatory. It takes one click to set up Verified ID, and as long as you've got a tenant with the Verified ID domain name, so for instance in this one it's contoso24.com, the setup process also creates a Verified ID where we can sort of like view the details of the verified ID. So this is all done by default. As soon as you get started, it will create these credentials, and then you can view the details around these credentials once you've got started. So if we go in here, we can see lots of details around what the verified ID is, and we can also be ready now to issue this credential to the Contoso users. So the users of the business will be ready to receive these credentials. So what we can have a look at is what are the credential details. So this is where you set up what credentials you want to be part of the verified ID. So the verified employee credential card will include certain claims that you select or attested attributes about that employee. So we might be thinking about things like the employee's full name, we might be thinking about the job title, there might be a photograph, whatever those need to be. We can also then issue this credential. So when we issue the credential, we go into obviously issuing the credential under the manage section of the verified ID. And on this page, this is where you would specify the scope of the credential essentially. So currently, all users within this particular tenant are allowed to create their own verified employee credentials, and that's through their My Account site. The credentials are also published to the Verified ID network, and that's so that the organisation can actually discover it and use it for their own verification purposes as well. So if we go into the overview, the design of verified employee as well can also be customized. So you might want to change the color of it. You might want to, just jazz it up a little bit. So we can edit the style. We can change the logo and the color attributes of the card. So it might be that we go to the logo URL, put a different logo URL in there, the different text color that we want, different background color that we want, and then we can update that card. And there we go. We've got a nice sage green background with the Contoso logo on there. And we can save. So now it looks a little bit more Contoso-y. So Contoso, this particular organisation, can incorporate VID or verified ID credentials into their internal identity governance workflows. So what that's doing is adding this extra layer of security when it comes to identity assurance. What we can then do from here, once we've built the verified ID, is go into ID governance and into the entitlement management. So, for example, the organisation wants employees of a certain partner organisation to be able to verify the employment within their respective organisation before accessing resources in Contoso. So you can do this by using a verified ID. So for instance, I want to access resources in Jan's environment. I can present my own verified ID to Jan's environment to be able to access those resources. So that's what we're looking to achieve. So if we go into the entitlement management, what we want to do is configure the setup in here. So as an admin, you would specify the partner organisation affiliation with Contoso. So we do that under entitlement management and the connected organisations. And in this case, Woodgrove is the connected organisation, and that's already existing in here. So if we select Woodgrove, and that is the organisation here. From there, what we want to do as an internal or external sponsor, we are, sorry, where has this gone to? My page has gone all funny. Okay, so strange thing. Okay, so we've gone into Woodgrove, and from there we would have internal sponsors at Contoso. We would have an external sponsor as well at Woodgrove. And we would specify for this Contoso sort of Woodgrove partnership who that needs to be. So if we select on the external user sponsors tab, where has it gone? This is broken. No. This is what always happens, doesn't it? There always has to be one that breaks at a certain point. Let me stop sharing that and rejig it all again. So where do we get up to? Number 18. Okay. Bear with me a second, guys. Sorry about this. Always has to happen. And for a Monday morning as well. We love it. Okay. Be up to this is completely and utterly crashed. Oh my word. Let's have a look. Oh. Okay, now we have a black screen. That's amazing. Sorry about this, Sandana. I think I'm going to have to end that demo because it has completely and utterly crashed on me.
No problem. Just while you are doing that, I just want to remind to my other speakers, there are also some question and answer posted on the Q&A channel. So I know that there are people who are also posting a question on the chat, but if I just want to ask our guys to watch also on the Q&A channel so that we can keep answering that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sandana. I'll just try one more time just to get back in.
Okay, no problem.
It's completely gone crazy on me. Let's just close on this too. We might be back in. You might. Right, okay. So let's try again. Okay, so we had created our verified ID, and what we were then trying to do was connect another organization with our organization to be able to show how that verified ID credential could work. That organization was called Woodgrove, and what we were trying to do was put the sponsors both internally and externally for Woodgrove. So if we click into the sponsors and into the external sponsors, which tab is now there, thankfully, we can go in and have a look at how we can set up those external sponsors. So if we configure Woodgrove to be that their employees have to present Contoso with a verified ID prior to being able to access those resources. So if we would do that with identity governance within the connected organizations. So the way that we do that is that we would create an access package to be able to manage and to be able to govern the access around the different resources, both for internal employees, but also the partners that we work with. And we do that under the access packages. There are several different access packages that have been configured already, but in particular, the one that we want is for the guest users. So we've got the guest users with VID, which is verified ID. So if we select on that, this access package is really granting what's going to do the granting of access to a specific set of resources within Contoso for partners. So in this case, for Woodgrove. So if we have a look at the different resource roles, this is listing out the different resources and the different roles that will be assigned to that access package grantees. So if we have a look at the policies, and then this policy is going to be associated with the access package. So it's going to define the rules, such as we might be thinking about the duration or the conditions of access for those Woodgrove users. So we have a look at that particular policy. And we can see the different details. We can add in the requirement to be able to present this verified ID that we've just been configuring. So if we edit, load, and then under the requests, so this access package is already restricted to the users of Woodgrove organization, and what we want to do is add an issuer so that we can have that verified ID attached. So when we add the issuer, we select that issuer from a list, and if we search for Woodgrove, and woodgrove.net is the one that we want. So here we can see that Woodgrove themselves have published that they have verified employee card for users. So this is where we add that card to our access policy. And we then would mean that Woodgrove users would be required to present that and request the access when they request the access package to our resources. So if we add that in, and the verified ID requirement is now added to that access package, as we can see. And optionally, what we can do is require that user as well to provide any additional information during that access request. So any information that we're looking to collect, we can add that in at that point as well. The lifecycle tab, so that's where we see that the access package is good to go. It's set up for 1 year after it's been issued, and we're going to review that on a quarterly basis. So that review can be performed by Contoso to say, hey, you know, every quarter, do we still need access? Take a look at the rules. We can also optionally decide when we want to extend the access package and grant workflow, grant a particular workflow with like custom extensions, for example. So depending on, you know, what the rule needs to be, we can customize that as well. And when we update the policies, what we've done is actually here, as an IT admin, this is how you would enable a verified ID in the tenant, which is what we started with. We created a verified ID employee card automatically, and we also walked through the access package. So that was specifically configured to employees of Contoso's partner organization, which is Woodgrove, to be able to present that verified ID to Contoso before they could access any resources within Contoso. So we were explicitly verifying that the person in Woodgrove was who they said they were before they accessed our resources. So we can, you know, go ahead and have a look at some other scenarios as well in the future. But for now, we will leave it there and we will go back to the presentation. Where were we? So jump to slide 9. Okay, so what we've just showed in the demo here, ultimately in the background, we want to talk a little bit around inbound provisioning. So I think Jan covered a little bit of this as well in his introduction, but really what we're doing around the access is thinking about how we provision from an inbound perspective. So HR driven user provisioning is the process generally of creating digital identities based on a HR system. It doesn't necessarily have to be a HR system. It could be anything, could even be like a CSV file. We really don't care if it's a HR system or what, but HR systems become that, in this case, we're going to talk about HR system, become that source of authority for these newly created digital identities, and then will be that starting point for the numerous provisioning processes that are going to follow after that person enters into that HR system. So, for example, we might be thinking about a new employee who joins the company. They're created in the HR system. Now, if this is a hybrid user, that creation is going to be triggering the provision of a user account into Active Directory, and then leveraging Microsoft Entra Connect to provision that account then into Microsoft Entra ID. For cloud-only users, the creation is going to trigger that provisioning of the user account into Microsoft Entra ID only. Different organizations will have on-premise HR systems, so we might be thinking things like SAP HCM. There's going to be cloud-based HR systems, so SAP SuccessFactors or Workday. It might be a mix of both. Historically, integration with on-prem HR systems for that HR-driven provisioning leveraged on-premises HR tools. So things like SAP Identity Management, SAP IDM, or MIM, Microsoft Identity Manager, to create those users in Active Directory. But now with the capabilities in Microsoft Entra, those tools, you don't need them anymore. So literally any HR system can be connected to Microsoft Entra ID for that inbound provisioning process. Additionally, as well, when we're thinking about onboarding and offboarding, there are workflows that can be automated. So taking away any kind of manual effort around, how we onboard, how we move, how we offboard users, and termination events also can be configured automatically to disable user accounts as well as enable user accounts at onboarding. So once a user has been provisioned in that HR system, it can be managed by that newer capability that we've brought into Entra ID called Lifecycle Workflows. Lifecycle Workflows is part of identity governance. It's part of that whole service that is really going to enable customers to be able to manage users in an automated fashion. So there are 3 basic lifecycle processes, as we know: the joiner, the mover, and the leaver process. Now, you may or you may not know, but a joiner is when an individual comes into the scope of needing access. So an example is a new employee joining a company. We've got the second one, which is mover. So a mover typically is when an individual is going to move between teams or departments within the same company. That movement is going to require, access or authorization to new systems and resources as part of their new role, but also to deprovision them from the old access and the old resources that they had access to. So an example will be a user moving from like marketing, who is then going into finance, for example. So you get rid of all the marketing access and give them all the finance access that they need. And a leaver obviously is when somebody's leaving the business. So that is the scope of needing to remove access at a particular time, incredibly important. Example would be, you know, somebody is retiring or somebody has been terminated, and depending on how quickly you need to remove those resources as to whether, you know, you set the timings on the workflows to be able to do that. The workflows will contain specific processes as well. Those processes will run automatically against users based on a trigger. So as they move through that life cycle, we're going to trigger certain executions to be able to be, you know, to execute tasks that we need to be done for that particular user based on what process it is that we're doing a joiner, remover, or a leaver. So workflows are made up of tasks and execution conditions. What is the task and how do we then execute? So the task is a specific action that runs automatically when a workflow is triggered, and an execution condition defines the scope of who and the trigger of when a workflow will be performed. There's also the automatic workflow schedules. So the automatic workflow schedules are like a trigger, so based on user attributes. So if we're thinking, you know, somebody is new to the business, so we might have a hire, please put yourself on mute. We might have a hire date, which is the trigger to setting a workflow off. So scoping that automatic workflow is possible using, you know, a really wide range of different attributes. So again, it could be, you know, that hire date, it could be department, whatever that user belongs to. So we might have some examples like a predefined workflow template for the most common user tasks that occur before, at, or after a join or leave a date. So these can run on demand as well. Built-in tasks, which might be generating temporary credentials, it might be sending emails, it might be updating user attributes and memberships, it could be removing licenses. There are automatic triggers. So again, as I said, that's based on attribute state changes of a user, custom policies for triggering workflows based on predefined or custom user states that can be created as well. And then there's customers and partners that can extend those lifecycle workflows. So depending on what those scenarios are, they can get pretty complex. And in scenarios where those workflows are pretty complex, that's where we potentially are going to need, you know, like the logic apps and the tasks to be able to help there. Verified ID. So we talked about verified ID. We saw the example of this, and Jan covered a little bit of this as well. So just for timing purposes, I'm not going to kind of go through this in great detail, but essentially this is a premium capability which is part of the suite, builds upon verified ID, which is already part of E5 with the face check. So this is powered by Azure AI services. Face check is that critical layer of trust. It's that, you know, high assurance that somebody is who they say they are in real time by using a selfie, and that then links into that verified ID. So, you know, this could even be used from a help desk scenario. You know, someone rings up, oh, I want to change my password. Make sure that there is no impersonation going on. We can highly, you know, assure ourselves that somebody is who they say they are when they verify their ID, and the help desk gets a notification to say, hey, yeah, they've passed the verified ID. So there's lots of different use cases around verified ID, but it's, you know, aiming to help onboarding be faster, help to secure access, help with easy account recovery, just, you know, speed up all of these processes in a more secure manner. So just to recap, we've done the provisioning of identities with the HR system with inbound provisioning. Like I said, it really doesn't matter where that information is coming from an inbound provisioning perspective. There could be multiple CSVs. It could be a HR system plus a CSV file. It really doesn't matter. We're looking at how we automate that joiner, mover, leaver lifecycle process, and how we leverage those new capabilities within lifecycle workflows to do that. and also then how we manage those request workflows with entitlement management, how we have the assignment reviews, how we have the expiration within those access packages that we build, and then how we layer in verified identity for that real-time face check and that high assurance somebody is who they say they are. The next scenario that we're going to talk about is modernizing remote access and secure on-prem applications. So when we think about how we modernize remote access to our on-premise applications, again, we're referring back to Microsoft Entra Suite. So this is what offers all of the key benefits to organizations to be able to, kind of move away from legacy approaches to how they access on-premise resources. What we really want to do here is to be able to bring together both identity and network. So we are giving a unified zero trust access policy that reasons over the identity, the endpoint, and the network to simplify that zero trust architecture and to really eliminate any gaps that may exist by these two areas not being combined. We're thinking about least privilege for all users to any application, to any resource, including AI applications, importantly as well. This is a much simpler and more consistent user experience for any resource from absolutely anywhere. Modernization and significant reduction of on-premises footprint as well is what we're aiming to achieve here. So what we're going to focus on in this next bit is how we actually do that governance for all employees and how we ensure least privileged access across any application or resource. So it's going to highlight various products. So again, we're going to be talking a little bit around ID governance, but we're also going to be talking about some of the SSE capability with Entra Private Access as well. So what I'm going to go through here is, when we're thinking about how we modernize remote access to secure on-premises applications from the cloud, the first thing that we're going to need to do is think about how we leverage Microsoft Private Access. So I'm going to show you how to replace that VPN by enabling private access, looking at the traffic profile for private access and configuring a very segmented approach to access for enterprise applications. When a customer has private access, they can put network controls into the conditional access policies as well, which is absolutely awesome from that perspective, to be able to do that risk-based analysis into those network policies. So we'll highlight how you can use conditional access in those policies to secure access as well. We're going to look at how we improve that user experience, so how we automate the different policies that people are subject to based on, which groups do they belong to, and through those lifecycle workflows that we touched on. And we'll walk through how lifecycle workflows will enable you to be able to simplify that mover of an employee into a new particular role. So it's all going to feel, or should feel, unlike the last demo, very seamless. And particularly for the user in this aspect when it comes to private access and ID Gov. And also from an IT admin perspective, it's the ability to have that periodic review of, well, what permissions are relevant, and actually to be able to really have that visibility to enforce least privileged access. So we'll show you a little bit of how to use that system-based recommendation to be able to continue to either deny access or grant access to resources with access reviews. So what I'm going to do is see if my demo is actually going to work this time, and go through the modernize side of things here. So let's get that demo up. So modernize remote access. I'll stop sharing here. Okay, and share here. Hopefully this one will not die on us. Right, okay, so again, we're in Contoso, and this organization is using Microsoft Entra Suite to be able to automate employee onboarding, to be able to maximize the employee experience in terms of how productive they can be when they need access to certain resources. So, you know, rather than having to wait for them to get access when they request access, how can we automatically grant access based on who they are and the risk associated with that identity? So those real zero trust security principles when we're granting access. So if we again have a look at how we can configure the employee onboarding. So this would be for the finance team in this scenario, and how we use Microsoft Entra ID to do that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to, first of all, in the global secure access, GSA, you might hear. GSA or Global Secure Access is a combination of our SSE solutions. So that is private access and internet access, which you might hear a lot about. So what we want to do, first of all, is to be able to allow the finance team to use intranet resources. So at the moment, and in many cases with your customers, they will be accessing intranet resources with legacy authentication protocols, and they're not protected by modern tools like multi-factor authentication. So when we think about global secure access, private access or internet access, that's where Contoso can provide access to applications now and take away that need for any traditional VPN solutions and actually front any of the applications with modern authentication controls. So the way that we configure that is in the traffic forwarding. And here you can see, again, you've got the Microsoft 365, the private access and the internet access. Today, we're focusing just on private access, but the private access traffic forwarding profile will it is the profile that is going to route that user traffic to Contoso's internal and private network, and that goes through Microsoft's Global Secure Access client. So what we want to do is have a look at the connectors. The connectors are really sort of lightweight. If you've ever dealt with that proxy before, you're going to be familiar with these connectors, but they're very lightweight agents that sit on a server in a private network, and they are what are facilitating that outbound connection to global secure access and to the service then that will do all of the granting of access to particular resources. So as an admin, there will be previously installed and configured connectors in a Windows server with access to Contoso's on-premise finance applications and resources. So if we configure an application in this case, what we do here is use this form to configure a per app access to internal resources. So rather than a VPN, which will give you access to a specific area of the network, we're getting very granular and we're segmenting to specific applications. So if we have a look here in this case at some of the configured resources that have already been put into the applications from this organization, we'll have a look at the enterprise applications, and we can see there are two apps that have already been configured. So if we take a closer look, there is the financial dashboard, the Contoso financial dashboard. So anybody working in finance is going to need access to that most likely. It's a web application. It's running hosted on an on-premises web server. So if we want to manage those network properties, we would go to the next network access properties. And in this page, that's where, as an admin, you would configure the different app segments that include the FQDN, fully qualified domain name, or the IP address and port number for that target resource that we need to get to. So the traffic to these locations will be tunneled through the Global Secure Access or the GSA service during that user access. So in this example, the financial dashboard application is accessed through an internal URL on port 443. So what we want to do then is actually combine the identity governance side of things. So we want to look at access to private applications and resources by looking at how we can do that with access packages. So, you know, going back to that identity-centric approach, who is the user, what should they have access to? And we do that initially with the identity governance and the entitlement management and access packages. So again, we go back to the entitlement management, we take a look at the access packages in the catalogs. And we can see that there is already a resource that's catalog that's been created to group all of the finance applications together. So this makes it really easy, rather than having all of the single applications, everything together in one single catalog that the finance team are going to need. So if we have a look in there and we select the different resources, the catalogue is going to consist of various things. So it might be application resources. In this case, this actually includes the financial dashboard that we saw that we were going to set up with private access. So if anybody logs onto that intranet application and that file server resource, they should be able to access through this access package. So if we have a look at this access package, and the access package for the finance team members has been created here. And what we want to do is we want to manage how the people who request that access package will be provided with access or membership to that resource with specific roles. So the recipients of this particular access package will be automated so that any new employee who joins the finance team will be granted access to this access package automatically. And the way that we do that is with the identity governance and with the lifecycle workflows, as we were saying earlier. So that's that new capability to be able to automate the way that we deliver certain and execute certain tasks. So let's have a look at the workflows. And the lifecycle workflows can be used, as I said, to automate real, typical tasks around an identity. So, somebody joining a team or leaving a team. So if we take a bit of a closer look at one of the lifecycle workflows, this is based on a new hire to the finance department. So if we take the new hire employee, this has been designed to run automatically on the very first day that somebody joins the organization. So if we take a look at what is it actually going to do, what's the scope of the tasks that we want it to do. So let's have a look at the scope details. So the scope tab specifies specifically that this workflow only applies to employees in the finance department. So as you can see, department is equal to finance. Anybody who sits in finance, this is going to run against. And then if we take a look at the tasks that it's actually going to execute, so there's multiple tasks that are built in that you can add into a workflow. But in particular, let's take a look at, the generate the tap and send email. So this is one of the tasks that we've built in. So what this is going to do is to create a temporary access package and send an email. So there's various things that the workflow is going to do. It's going to enable the user account. It's going to assign the Microsoft 365 license to the user. Then it's going to send this temporary access package and send an email out to the new employees manager to say, hey, this person's joining. Here's the temporary access package. Then it might send a welcome email to the actual employee themselves. And again, everything is customizable in these workflows. So you can literally set up what the subject needs to be, the message body, and you can set that to go to the user when they join the organization. You can also, as part of the last task in this particular process, is to grant that finance team access package to the employee themselves. So this is going to ensure that when they join on day one, they get that access package that we were just looking at, and they have access to the necessary applications, to the resources, and to the group memberships to be productive from day one that they join the organisation. If we take a scroll up. So we'll see the lifecycle workflow in action if we click on the users. So user accounts for new employees to be onboarded are created automatically. So again, that's through that inbound user provisioning service that we talked about earlier within Entra ID. So behind the scenes, the service integrates with the HR system, and Adam Ness is the new employee that's joining the finance team. If we click on Adam, Adam's user account is currently disabled because he isn't onboarded yet. What we might want to do around Adam's account is edit the properties so that we can look at Adam's account, we can see his attributes, things like his job title, his employee ID, his hire date, who his manager is. All of this has been iterated when we did that inbound user provisioning from the HR system. What we want to actually do is have a look at that the tasks that have been run against Adam. So this is taking us back to that lifecycle workflow. Today is Adam's hire date, and the new hire onboarding workflow has executed, and the process for Adam's user account has happened. And the way that we can view that is by looking at that workflow history. So when we go, we can see Adam Ness is here. Let's click on Adam Ness, and what we can see is that lifecycle workflow has happened. So on the 16th of May, we completed this particular workflow to onboard Adam and grant his access automatically. You can see that it gives you all of the information about what has happened, what has failed, and so on. And that is how we do the private access with the lifecycle workflow. So essentially what we covered there was the on-premise intranet application for the finance dashboard. We wanted the user, rather than to go through a VPN, to go through GSA, to go through private access, to be able to access the internet and to be able to access that finance dashboard. And what we wanted to do was automatically to be able to grant a new hire access to that permission to access that finance dashboard. And we did that through the lifecycle workflows. So if we just recap a little bit, and what we also want to do when we think about the lifecycle workflows, when we think about the access lifecycle that an identity is going to go through, there's that recertification process as well in Entra ID governance, and that is all about the access reviews. It's natively built in, it's part of E5, and we're building on that with the Entra Suite with some machine learning capabilities as well to make recommendations. So the access reviews is providing that native support as well for that B2B guest user scenario. It's providing those privileged roles. Non-human workload identities also can help when it comes to how we manage risk and how we meet compliance for users and workload identities. Because it's not just about those human users anymore, it is also about those machine identities too. So what we're trying to do really is to ensure how access is monitored, how access is recertified, that people still need access to sensitive things. So it might be teams, groups, applications, specific roles. Everything has to be reviewed periodically, and access has to be removed when it is no longer being used. So with access reviews, that's how an organization manages users assigned to specific groups, assigned to enterprise applications, access packages, privileged roles, all there to make sure that they maintain that security standard around the access that someone should or should not have. regular oversight by users themselves as well. So put that ownership on the users themselves, put that ownership on the resource owners as well, rather than it all staying with IT, who genuinely shouldn't know or don't know when someone should or shouldn't have access to something, and to other reviewers to ensure that users really are not retaining access for extended periods of time. We really don't want that standing access within the environment. Access reviews, again, is, as we've seen, a policy-based access certification mechanism. Bit of a mouthful, which can be used not just for employees of the organisation, but actually for guest users as well, and for privileged roles, which is really, really handy. With that growing trend around, more applications, more services that are moving into the cloud, we've got that whole piece around those non-human workload identities as well, or service principles. So what we want to do is really help reduce that reviewer attestation fatigue for IT, and give some intelligent recommendations. So that machine learning process around, oh, well, this user hasn't used their access for 30 days. Why don't you think about deprovisioning their access or checking with them that they still need that access? So you can actually as well, what's really cool with the approval workflow. So when we're setting an approval workflow up to say, hey, do you need access to this, for example, or hey, should someone still need access to this? Sometimes it needs to have a multi-staged approval process. So there needs to be multiple people involved in that approval. And for that reason, Microsoft is bringing out that multi-staged, that multiple approval ability within those access packages. There's a lot more insight that you can gain around access reviews. So particularly when we're thinking about audit and compliance needs, then you have to be able to download the access review history to be able to show where access reviews have been done. These reports are, you would have the ability to be able to construct these reports and to be able to include specific access reviews, specific timeframes, and you can actually filter as well to the different review types and the different review results that you want to see that are relevant to that particular audit. So really, really useful. So today we've covered in the modernized remote access, and I know I'm getting over time here, Sandana, so please jump in and tell me if you don't want me to do the next bit. But we've talked about how we can replace that legacy VPN scenario to leverage Microsoft Entra private access, how we can put modern authentication in front of legacy applications that exist on premise. So that intranet application, that finance dashboard, how we put legacy protocols to one side and implemented new modern access controls around how people get access and how they access a resource with private access. We enforce that least privileged access with conditional access policies. We secured a mover with that lifecycle workflow, how we automated that process, made it more efficient from a user perspective as well as an IT admin perspective, and how we looked at those system-based recommendations. We've talked about how access packages can leverage machine learning now to be able to say, hey, maybe you should look at how we recertify, maybe you should look at the access that this person has and how we can delegate that review to multiple people or to a resource owner rather than it all sitting with IT. There is another section that we need to cover. Sandana, do you want me to go into this one really quickly, or do you want me to just kind of go through the slides?
So if you got 1 minute or 2 minutes, we can close because we are indeed 5 minutes, 7 minutes over, and we got to make a short break and then come back. So,
yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. So the next session that we were going to cover, if we hadn't have had the demo failure at the beginning, so apologies for that. But this is the internet access part. So looking at how we secure access to our internet resources. So again, pretty much in the same way that private access works, this is about how we, again, who is the identity? How do we provide that lifecycle automation around that identity? But then how do we grant them access to resources that live in the internet or Microsoft 365? And again, it's all about how we're applying those risk-based controls around the identity to give them access to resources on the internet, rather than what we just saw with the private access to the private resources that exist on premise. So very, very similar. We would just leverage the internet traffic forwarding profile rather than the private access traffic forwarding profile to be able to configure the internet resources. But please feel free to reach out if anybody wants any kind of guidance around how you can do that. Both myself and Jan will be happy to walk through that. There's a lot around auditing and reporting, so just make a point of that in the last minute as well, because this is really, really important, and customers definitely need to be able to see this. So when you're speaking to customers, please, please, please talk to them a little bit more about that identity governance dashboard, because this is something that we don't currently have with E5, but we do with the Entra Suite. And this is that visibility. It's the ability to discover usage information about various IGA processes. So, things that, you can't see today, but you can see with the dashboard, users, whether they're external, whether they're internal, those guest users, privileged access roles, application, permissions with the applications have those service principals. So this is a really quick way for organizations to be able to have a look at that identity governance and what's going on there and take some quick actions. Dashboard is really, really useful and great reporting that's built in now. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Sorry for the mess up with the demo at the beginning, Santana.
No problem, no worries. Thank you very much, Stacey. It was awesome. I know there's a lot of questions and very good. Really thankful for all the people asking great questions in the Q&A and the chat window. It would be great if you can add the questions in the Q&A chat so that we can easily follow up. So, let's take a very quick break. Sorry, we can't take any question as we are running late. Let's take a 4-minute, 5-minute break. I would say 5-minute maximum, because to respect the time of other speakers as well. Margaret and Sagar is already on the chat. So let's break now, 5 minutes, and be back on time. Thank you very much. Hopefully you guys are back. Just starting slowly. I want to remind again that the Q&A, all the questions you want, you can raise it on the Q&A tab, which is much easier for our subject matter expert to follow. And also, if there are questions unanswered, we'll come back to you. We are creating a FAQ with all the questions and we will answer it and we'll share back. And we are also planning some office hours, right? So we will package all these questions and take it in a proper office an hour so that, we can comment the questions and the answers and have a community discussion. With that, I want to welcome Margaret and Sagar for the great Entra ID governance deep dive session. Margaret, Sagar, please take it from your side.
Sure. Thank you very much, Sandana. Hello, everyone. My name is Margarita Garcia, aka Maggie. I'm a product manager in the Identity Network Access team. In today's conversation, we're going to be discussing Entra ID governance. Sagar, do you want to introduce yourself? I'll introduce myself. I will introduce Sagar as well. Well, Sagar is Sahi, is also product manager in the Identity Network Access team. And we're going to both be covering the session. So let's move along into the presentation. Just give me a minute. There you go. Can you confirm that you can see the screen and it's moving?
It's still
coming. Perfect.
No, I can't see. I can't yet see it. I think it's still coming.
Still coming?
But right now I don't see it.
Well, I see a couple of thumbs ups in the chat, so probably.
Yeah, I can see it, Maggie, as well.
Yeah, okay. All right, perfect. So this is the agenda. So do you know that, the entire session is to cover Entra Suite. I think Stacy did a great job covering, the initial scenarios that we have there. We're going to be covering. I think somebody's on mute, so somebody, yeah, perfect. I still hear some feedback. There's somebody on mute in the chat. Please go mute. Perfect. So I'm going to be covering the Entra ID governance overview session. The purpose of this part of the session is to be as technical as possible, so I will try to jump into the demo as soon as possible to show you around. Please, any questions that you have, as Sandana mentioned, put it in the Q&A. We will make sure that you get an answer either today or later on with the FAQ document that we are creating. So let's move ahead. So just going back a little bit towards the beginning, right? We have 4 different pillars or scenarios in which we are using Entra Suite, right? So we have the whole zero trust, we have secure access and employees, secure customers and partners, and secure cloud. And as you can see here, there's a bunch of different solutions that we have as part of these 4 pillars. And what is great about this slide is when you click next, you can see the different products that we have mapped to each one of those. I want to jump right into the licensing one because this is one question that comes up a lot in different conversation. And I just want to recommend the link that is in the portal right now, the licensing fundamental link. If you have any questions regarding the license, please go and visit that resource. The product team, we put like a great effort to make sure that we are putting differentiating different scenarios there and putting the check like to map the different scenarios that you can have along with the licensing that you will need. Of course, if you don't want to worry about it, just go for the Entra Suite one and you will have it all. But please go ahead and check if you have any information about the different scenarios, like, oh, I want to do API provision, and like actually you can do API driven provisioning. You don't need an actual license for that. Like you just use the API and you start provisioning to that. But there's some nuance to that when you go and are developing or deploying this into with a customer. Then you see, like the API driven provisioning under the license scenarios, and you will see like what is the actual nuance that is out there. So for example, for you to use, for example, to have an application, an enterprise application to enforce the API driven provisioning, you need P1 or P2, and then P1 and P2 will allow you to have a max of two enterprise application registered for on-prem and for Entra and two for Entra ID. But if you have, for example, the Entra ID governance, then you have 20 of each. So those are the little nuances that maybe you will have to go through the documentation from the licensing perspective to like solve these type of scenarios. But like we make a really good effort to document everything, and so everything is public in the documentation, so you go ahead and have a look. Let's jump right in. So Entra ID governance. So why Entra ID governance, right? So what we really want to do with Entra ID governance is like we want to ensure that the right people have access to the right resources at the right time, no more, no less. Like this is exactly what we want. We want to make this like as efficient and as not technical burden as possible, and we also want to make it like automated, right? We want everything to happen from automation perspective, because in that way we're minimizing the risk of people mistakes, misconfiguration, etc. Or for example, like permission hoarding, like a person grabbing and moving between different departments and then hoarding all the permissions along the way. So we want to avoid all of those scenarios. That's why we want to ensure that all the automation is in place to make that happen. So why is Microsoft going into this scenario? Why Microsoft ID governance? So the first one is the ease of adoption, right? We already are an identity provider. So why not? It just makes sense that us being the identity provider with the identity centric, or for many organizations, for us to jump into that and to make this happen for the governance perspective. The next one is the simple extensibility. We already are an open type of enterprise that allows you to connect with multiple other third parties, right? We can connect, we're going to see it later, we can connect with SAP, we can connect with Workday. Then, if we think about the Power Platform solutions that we have in the Logic apps, and we can extend and connect with many others applications out there. And that's, going to the third point, like integrating and releasing, that's without talking with our own set of portfolio for security solutions that we have out there. And then the time to value, right? Just makes sense. Like you just keep growing or keep your evolution in the licensing perspective. And then, everything it makes sense because it's cost effective. So in a nutshell, I really like this slide. So if you're ever talking with a customer, they pretty sure to bring this up, because this is exactly this comprise Entra ID governance in a single site, right? So you want to make sure in Entra ID governance to identify the user. Okay, who is that user? Then you want to make sure, okay, what is that user doing? And it isn't just like what role does that person have. We really want to break down into like what application, and we see that application, which type of permission that person needs to have, and then what type of control would I make in place to make sure that that person have the roles, but I'm controlling the permissions that that person have within that application. And then you also want to have like visibility, or that you want to have the track of any actions that that person is performing within that application or within that access in your organization. Another thing really important here is like the connectivity. Okay, where am I getting these users from? So many organizations they will sort of have some sort of HR system. They will either have, building their own, like they probably have their own application building in which when they hire a person, they have a process which they take all of that information of that person and then take it in. They probably use one of those HR common systems that we have out there, like Workday or SAP, which are the famous one. I have an organization which have like a really simple onboarding process that it was simple enough. Like they have like a Microsoft form and they fill out that form and they wanted to integrate that form with our Microsoft ID governance. Totally possible. You can definitely do that with the API inbound provisioning. So if you don't think, like if you don't have Workday or SAP, you cannot use our tool. You definitely can use our tool because we have the API. The API is open and you can leverage that API to bring that information to our platform. And then of course you want to think about like automated the self-service part, right? So Stacy mentioned at the beginning, when you hire a person, you want that person to be as productive as possible, right? You want that person, like day one, that person needs to have their identity and all the permissions necessary to start working. And then from there, maybe in 6 months, that person will need an extra permission. So you might not want to give that person that extra permission in day one because that person is, still learning, is still like in the onboarding process. But after 6 months that person is already on the role, that person's gonna need some extra permission. So you might not want to automate that. You can definitely do it. You can do, you can use one of those start date plus, and you put like 60 days down the road, and then you give it automatic. But then you can leave it towards the user. Okay, when you need it, you can go ahead and request this one. So, and this is the self-service one, which you will create your different access packages, and that person will have the My Access portal, and in that portal, that person can go ahead and say, okay, now I want to request that access because now I'm feeling the need that I need to request that access to perform my activities in the organization. Let's deep dive a little bit more into the HR provisioning that we mentioned before. So as we mentioned, like we have connectors, right? We have the connectors, but how, for example, does it work behind the scene? We're gonna see it in the lab in a little bit, but like down the scene, you have the connector. Depending on the connector, you can have a pull or a push sort of type of mechanism, and then you can have it right back. Like, for example, you can say, okay, I had a person, I hire Margaret. Margaret is joining the company. I have all the detail of Margaret, but Margaret doesn't have a really UPN in Microsoft Entra ID because that identity hasn't been created in Microsoft Entra ID. So I need a way that I can write back into my HR system and say, once that identity is provisioned in Microsoft Entra, then I want to write back and put the user OPN or have the email address that was assigned to Margaret once hired. So those are typical process or different nuances that you will have when you are talking to your customers. Okay, how do I do that? So simple enough, if the person already have one of the connectors that we have built in, you can just go ahead and review the documentation that we have for that. Otherwise, you can be creative as well. For example, we have the web API provisioning, which you have the block storage with a file service type. You will read the information from there, and from there you will start provisioning to that. I have organization who has think even beyond that. They have like a data factory type of solution in Microsoft, and from there they start extracting information to the Entra ID part. So this is really important when you are building that logic. Another part that is really interesting is like, where do you want to provision? And this is like depending on the organization, you will find an organization that will say, you know what, I'm 100% cloud, I'm gonna go for cloud. And that's great. Those are one of the scenarios that we want to hear more. But in most cases, you will have, organizations in which we are still depending of the on-prem, and they still use hybrid users and stuff like that. So they probably want to provision to the on-prem services first, and from there they wanna, use our services to synchronize the identity to the cloud. So this is important. I'm gonna go into more depth when I'm in the lab with them, the attribute mappings and stuff like that needs to happen to provision the identity in a bit. But like, from a high level perspective, this is what you need to understand when we're talking about HR provisioning scenarios. Then we have app provisioning. We call it app provisioning. Sometimes people call it outbound provisioning. We really like app provisioning. And here, what we have here is that we have different ways into how you can, for example, provisioning to these applications. Like if again, like if the application is a web application that is already integrated with Microsoft Entra, is way easier, right? But like the stuff starts to get complicated when we're talking about on-prem applications and that have LDAP dependencies, that have Kerberos dependencies and stuff like that. So this is where, you know, the nuances start to happen. But then we have what we have an ICMAC agent that will allow you to, okay, I want to I want to take that application, I want to register that application into my ECNA type of agent, and in there I'm going to do the mapping. The map is really important because the mapping is what, okay, when I'm provisioning that, okay, what is going to be the user, the username, last name, you know, when you are creating that identity into those type of applications, then you can have it. And then it can be even more complex, in which you will need like feedback back. Okay, I created the application, the user in the application, but then I need like some feedback mechanism back to Entra ID. And we can, all of that is possible. Either it will be like as easy enough that you will have, you know, you will use a scheme mechanism to with the ECMA type of agent and provisioning in the application, and from there you can have logic apps type of integrations to then do more mapping and do more actions within those. But definitely you can do all of that with our solution. Here you have a bunch of documents. I'm just gonna show it here. I know it's a lot. I'm gonna make sure that you get all of these links at the end of the presentation for you to use on your own. Let's move into the HR provisioning life cycle then. Oh, I think I skipped. Okay. So again, the life cycle automation. You probably are gonna be seeing this slide in a couple of times during these sessions. As I mentioned before, when you hire a person, you want that person to be productive as possible. That person joined the organization, you automate or you give what we call the birthright permissions, right? Just because I'm a ex-employee of X organization, I have some type of, you know, permissions, and then because I have X role, then I have X type of permission, and then you want to have like the self-service one, and then around that you want to have the access recertification process. You want to have a lot there happening. When we are talking about the HR provision, this are all the steps that need to happen. If we break that down, each one of the steps that I mentioned before, then you have one of the solution that I mentioned before that it can either be SAP or Workday, because those are the ones that we have the built-in connector, but it can be Web API, as I mentioned before. From there, you talk to the Microsoft ID provisioning services. And then from here is where you decide, okay, I want to provision to Microsoft Entra ID. I want to go to Microsoft Active Directory to make this happen. So make sure like to read each of the steps here that is on the right side of the screen. It's what I mentioned before. You talk to the provisioning services. In the provisioning services, the magic happen. The magic is the mapping of the attributes that is happening before, in which I'm saying, okay, what is my match attribute? You need to have that one, because that one is the one that is going to determine, okay, if I already have a Margaret in my system, Margaret already exists in my system, then I want to make sure that I'm not duplicating that Margaret in my system. So what is the attribute that I'm using? Many organizations use the UPN. That's a common one. There's some use, you know, I've seen some no issues. Like I've seen some scenarios in which the UPN can be challenging to use, in the sense, for example, you can have two Stacies with the same Stacy, you know, in the same name and same last name, and then the UPN will end up being the same. So what you want to build like some sort of a system to work around that. There's a way into how to do that. We actually developed like a logic logic app to sort of like go through that and identify those collisions type of scenarios and then fix those. There's organizations that use, for example, the employee ID, that there's a type of attributes that since is random generated coming from the HR system, then it's way more difficult for those collisions to happen. And then you can use, like, for example, if it's a person that is is coming back, a person that was hired but then left and then came back, that person can still reactivate their same employee ID that they had before. So it has some benefits around using the attributes as the employee ID one. I'm just throwing a couple of examples that I've seen here and there in a couple of scenarios there. Then you have the custom HR provisioning, which is the Web API one. In the Web API one, we have different ways to how to do this. The most common one being like the CSV file with the SQL database type of scenarios in which you just you create your system, you have your CSV file. I'm actually going to demonstrate that later on, or the SQL base types, and then based on that you can push the information back into the system. Thank God that I use the word push, because that remind me that for custom HI provisioning, we just support like the push type of mechanism, because we just like bulking everything into a list of user, and then pushing that information into the Entra ID, and then based on the matching attributes that you're using, then we can determine, okay, this user already exists, and I'm just updating certain properties of the users, or I'm creating or I'm deleting, depending on the type of actions that you want to also perform there. Scenario 2 and 3 is just we have people like you, our partners, who are actively developing different type of connectors for locals, HR vendors that like we don't have like a native built-in solution. So we have partners that are taking the step beyond and creating their own type of solution around that for those HR type of solutions for that. So yeah, basically they leverage the Web API that we have published there to make all of this happen. What is happening behind the scene, and I really like this one. I think we published this not so long ago. Is this is the step-by-step process, like what is happening behind the scene. We have the IT admin, we have the API developer, the identity system record. There's some sort of automation pool that can be PowerShell, or it can be Logic App, or it can be Power Automate. I don't know what you are using for automation part. And then you have, of course, the Microsoft Identity Provisioning Service Agent there, and you have the app gallery, and then you have the Entra ID. And in the flow, you can see at which stage everything is happening, and then what is the type of code back that we need to have. Like most of the time, you want to code 200 for the API provisioning. That means like I'm connected, everything went good, I pass the information back into organization. Another good thing to have in mind for example, in the Logic App provision is like you have a hard limit of 50 records per job that you can do every time that you call the API for provisioning. So that's also a really good one. And I mentioned this because at the beginning, when you are dealing with a really big organization that have thousands of employees, it can take a while for, if you're using web type of web API type of provisioning, to bring all of the information there and to synchronize everything there. So make sure that you are sizing your project accordingly to the different limitations that we have in the solution. I feel I'm talking too much. Let's jump into the demo. So this is the first demo. As you can see here, we are in the portal. We're gonna be provisioning Workday type of invite provisioning. So I'm just here. looking at the different connectors that I have. As you can see, you have Workday connecting to Entra or Workday connecting to the on-prem. Since this is already created in the lab demo, you just go ahead and you just go open your application, you go to the provisioning tab. In the provisioning tab, there are a couple of things that you want to double check there. Like you want to see the, like the view technical information for you to have more information. This is going to be important for the web API one that I'm going to show. When you are there, you're going to check, like how are you connecting to the solution, like passwords, URL, and everything. This is the part that I was stressing before. Which is, like the mapping attributes and the scoping mechanism. Let me pause just the video here for a bit. When we are mapping the attributes here, as you can see, I'm going to jump into my lab and I'm going to go into more detail here. As you can see here, this is the list of attributes that I'm working with. On this side, we have the Entra ID attributes, the user, UPM, user details, username, last name, everything. And then on the other side, you have the Workday one. You have to make sure that you are mapping correctly, because maybe in Workday you have, the attributes can have a different name or be called different. So you just want to make sure that everything is mapped accordingly. And then you want to make sure of this piece here, which is the matching precedence, right? You want to make sure in this case we're using the UPM, the user principal name, to match which type of user the users that we're doing. And in here you have like the target actions we are creating, we're updating, we're deleting. This is the 3 actions that we support there. And then another important thing is what we see here, right? Like the source object scope. And in this one, what I want to make sure is like organizations say, look, I have 10,000 of employee in my organization. I have 10 organizational unit. I don't want to bring everything to Entra. That's fair enough, right? Maybe you have some sort of like enterprise type of solution in which one of those organizational units is dev, is for developers. So you don't want to bring the developer identities for Entra for any reasons that you might have. You can definitely use that as part of your source object and just okay, I'm gonna make sure that I'm bringing the users that have that are part of that. So I think okay, so that's the part that makes sense there. Let me just pause here. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna go here. This is my lab. Let me show you a little bit what I have right here. So what do I have right here that I want to show you? So the first thing that I want to show you is this one. I'm gonna move this because I feel like sometimes I'm gonna mess it up. But yeah, but this is, like the Graph Explorer type of solution. If you're not familiar with it, like go visit the documentation. There's a couple of example there that you can use to familiarize yourself with. Here, what I'm just doing is just like I'm executing a get and who am I, and this is bringing me the information of the users that I'm currently logged in, everything that is here. Then another important piece is the permissions here part, like this. Mostly I'm using delegated information to sort of like have access, so that graph have access to read user information and then bringing that information here. Beyond that, let me go to the tenant. This is the users that I have in my tenant right now. I'm gonna go to the enterprise application. In the enterprise application, I'm using API provisioning here, as you saw in the demo before. And in this, we're going to the provisioning tab. So when we are in the provisioning tab, this is really important, as I mentioned before, is provisioning, first the detail. You want to see also here, like the status, like you don't have to have this on all the time. Like if you're not expecting a user to be provisioning in the next few hours, you probably want to stop the service and, just in case for security. And then another important piece is this URL here. This URL is what you use when you are using web API provisioning. This URL is specific to your tenant. That's why when you are customizing your own API provisioning, you're going to need to copy this URL and put it as part of your provisioning. So if I go back to my Enterprise Explorers, I have an example here. This is in our documentation, and it's pretty easy. You just mostly copy and paste everything that is there. So we're changing this to a pause type of mechanism. I copy my URL here. I have my body request that I copied from the documentation before. It's important to make sure that you're using the content type. Of course, we're talking scheme JSON type, so make sure that you add this, and make sure also sure that you have the right permission. So I already run this before, and as you can see in the body of what we have here, we're just creating this, different user. We have this user, Barbara Jensen, Babs Jensen. We are, filling out all the attributes that we find as part of that user one. And as you can see, I have actually two. I have Barbara and I have Casey here. So if I go back to my provisioning here, you're going to see here the success, right, of these users being created in my tenant before. So as you can see here, I have Kathy Jensen, I have Babs that I mentioned before that I have been provisioning. This is really good because these are the logs that you want to, okay, what happened in my tenant? I want to see, for example, I want to see the last 24 hours, the last month, or customize these. Also, another good one is the action type. So maybe in the action, you want to just double check, okay, I want to check which one has failed. This is a good place to start, right? Which one has failed or have been deleted, or this type of actions that are quite harmful to the organization. Maybe towards the end you want to start with the creations or disable type of log. So this is really good to start there. Then I'm already here, right? So I'm gonna go to the provisioning one. So in the provisioning one, there's another piece of good one that you want to double check. So in my case, I have it automatic because I have a logic app also that is running every time that I hit run. But you can have it run, you can have it in a schedule, like every 24 hours, every month. Like that's how organization actually use it. In my case, it's just on demand. When I go into the logic app and I hit run. So then what you have here is the mapping. So this is the mapping mechanism that I mentioned before. In my case, I'm using the employee ID. As I mentioned before, UPN can have these type of scenarios with collision, people that have same name, same last name, and many organizations have the rule that they use name plus last name, and that's the UPN of the user. So, like this type of scenarios I want to avoid. So I'm just use the employee ID in my case to make this happen. And then I have my mapping. This is the mapping that I'm using right here. You can add or delete new mapping depending, on your needs. This is really good. And then you have like more mappings here that you can use in case that, like it's not listed here, I want to customize a new one, you can definitely do that. Going back into my users, I mentioned before, you see it here. I ran this just before coming to this call, and I have my two users created here for you to double check. So this is one easy example into how you can use the API provisioning. But let's say I want to take this to the next level. I want to have a CSV file, and I want to automate all of these. So how you do that is we also have all of this documented. In this case, we're using a block storage, and within that block storage, we have a file server, and in that file server, we have this file server, which is user CSV. As you can see here, these are the users that I have, that I created before, that are in this tenant, and then I am here in my logic app. So I mentioned before, this is my logic app. This is running every time that I hit run, but you can have configure your recurrence here whenever you want to. There's a couple of things that I want to double check here. Is like what we're doing right now with all of those steps that you see at the beginning. It can be hard to work your mind around, but like basically it's simple. We are counting the number of records that we have there to make sure that we're not going above the 50 hard limit that I mentioned before. And the second part piece that we are doing right here is building this scheme type of JSON format that we have here to make sure, because this is what the API is expecting, which is exactly what we have here. So you want to, what we're doing in the Logic app is building, constructing this in the right format for the API to be able to consume this information before. And again, I ran this before. I have my users already created here. My namings are not good, so is this two TF and GF here. But yeah, but this is what we were doing in the API provisioning before. It's quite simple. The thing that you need to make sure that is happening, that in which, for example, I face a couple of errors, or what I see with most customers is with the mapping. Sometimes the mapping is not correct. Sometimes, there's a failure because the mapping is not, you are not putting everything in the right format. Then in the Logic app one, also make sure that the scheme JSON format that is constructing is not missing the started code here. It's really important for you to have it. Super, you need to start with this one. There's actually one of the steps of the Logic app is just doing this piece. So these are the common errors that I see with when I'm working with the organizations. Then I mentioned before, you have the 3 actions. And as you can see here, like these 2 are updates, because I've run this before, these Kathy and Babs through the before. So this is just basically modifying a couple of attributes and I think there was a question in the chat before that. So yeah, you can use the web API. Actually, I've seen many organizations, just develop a script to update. I want to update the last name or the department, because the department is changing from IT to information technology. They just run a script and they pull the information, and then they just go and update that attribute through using the web API information here. So basically, that's a good summary for the web API provisioning bit. I'm gonna go back to the deck. In this demo example, we're doing more or less the same. In this case, what we're doing is actually SQL database in Azure. So instead of using the block storage and the file servers with CSV file, we actually using a SQL database type to make the provisioning to the organization again. So, but it's basically the same, like maybe the beginning is a little, the source of the information is a little bit different, but then the rest of the experience is more or less the same to make everything happen. So I'm just gonna skip this one. I wanna really spend some time here in the common asks. So what are some common asks that you're gonna receive from the customers? So first of all, like attributes, like the hire date and the leave date time. So these 2 types are really important. Why? Because these 2 triggers lifecycle workflow. So you wanna make sure that this is important. I have some nuances to it. Like for example, I have a customer that once tell me, look, like I hired a person, but that person can go do some stuff, and after a few months is that person come to the organization and I give him the device, and that person needs to be created the identity, and the lifecycle need to kick in around that. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Maybe you don't use a lifecycle joiner type of a scenario. You can use one of the mover ones, and use one of the attributes for the movers scenarios, because the joiner will have like the hire date, what in the lever we have the leave date time, sort of like hard type of triggers for that. That's why the mover one is a little bit more flexible with the trigger bit. So that's why you might want to use that. And then the other one is like you can use one of those, 15 attributes that we have for on a sign in Entra, and put the hire person then in one of those, and then use the hire date one for when the user is going to pick up the laptop. So those are workarounds that we develop along the way whenever we're talking with organization. I mentioned before the scenario about the user principal name. That's already been documented. We have a Logic app that you can leverage to sort of like work around yourself these type of scenarios as well. So I invite you all to go ahead and click that link and do that. There's another good one that is the provision and approval. That's a really good one. I had an organization as well who said, like I'm a bunch of organization coming together. And like each organization have their own sort of like approval mechanism. So if I'm coming from company A, even though we all are part in the same Entra ID tenant, but if I'm coming from company A, I want Stacy to go ahead and approve that provision before going to my Entra ID one. So that's a really good scenario. We have also that documented. I think we have it in the video before. I can show it as well. I mentioned before the scope. For example, I want to target some specific organizational unit. That's also a good one. The fifth scenario here is the write back that I mentioned before. Like again, like I have that person name, last name, everything, but I don't really have that person email address until like that UPN or the license is assigned in the Entra ID one. So I want to write back into my building connectors to make that happen. So there's also been documented. We have that for Workday in SuccessFactors. So go ahead and check the link and make that happen. And then, there's a couple more there. But like make sure, like if you have any question along the way, like try to engage any of us, like the product team, the GVBs, the commercial team. We're here to help you. But the login and alerting part is also a good one for you to have in mind when you are working yourself around this one. Let me move along because I think I'm eating all the time. I'm just going to go to the app provisioning type of a scenario. In the app provisioning type of a scenario, we want to create users into the applications, right? So we are here. So we have the user. Then we want to automate that person identity into my applications ones. I actually have a demo for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demo so I leave enough time for Sagar to cover his part. So as you can see here, I have this is a virtual machine that I have in my lab. In that virtual machine, I have this database and this table employees. As you can see here, these are the list of users that I have here right now. Let me go to my portal. So I go to the portal. I actually run this before to make sure everything works. The demo lords have mercy on me. But I go here. For you to make this happen, you just go ahead, you go to a new application, you look for this application, which is the ECMI type of app provisioning ones. Once you have that, you're going to download that application. That application, it's going to be installed in one of your servers. Make sure that application is installed, centrally to all the application is on reachability to this one. So once you have that, I just register my application here. As I mentioned before, I have my application here. Once I have that application here, you have to make sure that you have that secret token is important. So when I go back to the portal, I'm going to show you. I use this credential and the secret token that I created here to make the connection between the Entra ID and the SQL. And this is, this agent that I have here. And then the second part important here is the attribute mapping again. So this is the attribute mapping that I'm using right here to make this happen. So basically, in a nutshell, that's it. All of this is fully documented as well, but those are the two steps, really important steps that you need to take in the on-prem agent bit. And then once you create everything here into let's go into the application. Okay, so I'm here. I'm going to go to provisioning again. Once I'm here, as I mentioned before, I'm going to hit provisioning. And here I have the credential, as I mentioned before. I have to use this URL. In this URL, as you can see, I'm connecting to the application that I created before. And here I put my secret token that I created before. And in here, I have the mapping that I showed you before. So I have the mapping into the ECMA agent on-prem, and then I have it here in Entra as well to make it happen. To use this ECMA agent, the person needs also to be part or registered to that application as well. So if I go to my users and groups, you will see here that I have these 3 users. These 2 I already used, so I'm gonna try on-demand provisioning with this one Satoru that I haven't used. So I'm gonna go to provisioning. I'm gonna go to on-demand provisioning. I'm gonna hit Satoru here. Wait, something there that is not there. I'm gonna click and I'm gonna hit provisioning. It's gonna take some time to run through everything. Ooh, there's actually a failure here. The steps. Okay, probably I have one of my, I have one of my attributes that is not matching. As I mentioned before, this can happen. I'm gonna double check that one, but like everything, after everything happens here, what you should expect here is to go here and then you will see the person here. Actually, let me try with another one. Let me try with Barbara. Babs Jemsen. I'm gonna assign it here. Go to the provisioning one. Let's go to Babs. Yay! Yeah, sometimes when I create my users, I do not fill all the details in the user page, so that happens. So as you can see here, this one went through. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna double check. As you can see, I'm gonna run this again. And I have it created here. So I have Barbara, that it was the one that was created before, and then I have Barbara 1, that was the one that was created now. So yeah, that's, for example, how you use app provisioning to provisioning users to your on-prem applications. From here, again, like this can get complicated. Like, for example, you can see, you can say, okay, once I create this user here, I want to go back to the Entra one and update some details and stuff like that. So I've seen that done with Logic apps and stuff, especially in SAP scenarios and stuff like that, that you have different roles and, like the structure of SAP can be quite complex. So in that one, I have seen more extensibility, more work being done around this one. So let me go back to the presentation. I think that's it that I have to present for the application one. I don't know if there's any question before passing on to Sakar, any pressing question that I can address before moving on. Either way, I'm going to stay here and answering question in the chat and the Q&A.
Sure. There's one latest question, I believe, talking about, do we have any provisioning capability for other applications than SCIM?
Yes, you can see here. I'm gonna go here. So these are the different protocols that we can talk when provisioning. I probably skipped this one and I went too fast, but as you can see, you have SCIM, but we also speak SOAP and REST. I see this a lot with, especially for web applications and stuff like that. You can do a post and provisioning using that. LDAP is a really common one as well. And then, SQL and PowerShell can be another one mechanism to use that. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Sagar. Then I leave it to you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Maggie.
And Sagar, I'll let you take it from you. And yeah, thank you very much, Margaret. Please have a look on the Q&A. It's very interactive over there. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandana. I will just share my screen. I'll try to do more of a total configuration and moving around and showing features than just running the PPT that I have. The reason is most of the things Stacy has covered. There are two important aspects that I want to discuss. One is extensibility with the birthright access, and second one is extensibility with JML, right? Lifecycle workflow, the joiner, mover, lever situation. So I'll talk about these two scenarios broadly. but I'll just quickly share my deck as well, so that I am on track. Let me know once you guys see it.
Yeah, we can see the screen, Sagar.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So Stacy and Maggie talked about birthright access, right? I mean, we saw that entire user journey flow that Maggie showed in her initial slides, wherein when the user is onboarded to Entra ID, using, let's say, API-driven provisioning, or let's say using a hybrid identity using Entra Connect Sync or Cloud Sync, the first thing that is required from the governance point of view is having the birthright access, correct? For example, a user is joining an IT department, so the user should get access to those IT department resources, as well as if the user want to let's say do collaboration with any other department, or want to have access to some additional applications on top of the birthright applications. We have the self-service capability, wherein user can visit to my access portal and request access to that specific access package. So this piece actually comes under the entitlement management capability, wherein we can create an access package. I'm sure we all are aware, if some of those who are not. It's just a kind of a package, meaning a box wherein you place your resources. The resources can be groups, applications, it can be roles, which means that whenever user is provisioned, the user, based on the user's entitlement, the user will get access to those resources automatically. That traditionally, what admins do is they kind of do a group-based access, meaning when the user is onboarded, they place those users automatically. Place those users manually into those groups, and that's how the access management is controlled. That is traditionally, but with the governance capability, we do that with the birthright access, which is done automatically. That automatic trigger can be based on an attribute, based on time, or it can be based on group as well, right? So user is part of, like, user has an department attribute as IT, then the user, as soon as it's onboarded into Entra ID, will be placed into that specific package. User wants to gain access to more application, that is also packaged in a different package. The user needs to just go to a self-service portal, search for that particular package, and request access. The admin can request for certain information. It can have a form-like structure wherein you need to fill in the information. The sponsor or the admin who owns that particular package will review that, and then based on the information, it can be denied or access can be granted, right? So that's the entitlement management piece within the Microsoft. It also covers a lot of aspects, right? Wherein there are a lot of scenarios when the users change roles. That can also be covered, meaning a user has access to a certain package. We can set up the configuration in such a way that users moving from one department to another department, the previous accesses should be revoked, and the user should get access to the new package. We also have something called as separation of duties, meaning a user from IT department shouldn't have access to, let's say, a critical package which is part of, let's say, finance department, right? So separation of duties allows admins to put some restrictions wherein users will not be able to request access to certain access packages. In fact, admins has the capability to hide certain access packages if they want to. Now, lot of questions, right? I mean, when we do some kind of a proof of concept with the customers, and I'm sure you might have got a lot of questions from the customers, wherein, hey, I understand the birthright access, I understand how we kind of create how technically it works, and how end-to-end the solution works, right? But when it comes to implementation, how to do that deployment, right? I mean, a lot of access packages, a lot of departments. A company might have, like, say, let's say 50 departments. 50 departments will have different verticals. How to do that entire thing, right? And who is going to be owning those specific packages? Because IT department in a whole, I mean, by saying it sounds like it's just IT department, but in a large organization, there are a lot of verticals within that department, right? So managing the access packages, managing the entire entitlement management piece is a huge task, right? So for that, we have certain, I mean, we have given certain capabilities within the solution, wherein you can catalog a certain access package, a certain resource, and a admin, or let's say a lead of that vertical, or a lead of that particular entire package, or the sponsor of that particular package, can manage just those aspects of the applications, right? Meaning, you're admin, you're trying to create an access package. This doesn't mean that you should have the permissions to add any application to any access package. So a customer or a governance administrator has that capability, wherein you can spin up the catalogs, you can define what is going to be there in the specific catalog, so that the admin of that particular vertical can create an access package and assign the resources that are part of that specific catalog, right? So I'll just show you in the portal how that exactly looks, and maybe I'd be happy to take questions once we finish this off on the chat, or if you want to come off mute. So I'll just quickly go to entitlement management, access packages. Now I have certain access packages created here, right? Here is IT birthright, marketing access package, sales and marketing access package, right? Now if I there's something called as catalog, right? So when I say new catalog, it is basically asking me to create a group of resources which will be cataloged into this specific entity, and this catalog will be leveraged to create an access package, right? So here I have created the catalog. I, as an admin, can assign the groups that are required for a particular test. I mean, the access package that I'm going to create, right? It can be, let's say, this group, for example, some application. Now, as a catalog admin, I have access to almost all the applications that I have in my tenant, right? We do not want to see that in customers' environment. Multiple SharePoint website. So here what I'm doing is I'm creating a catalog of the resources that will be leveraged by the owner of that particular vertical to give access to the users of that particular vertical as part of the access package, right? So for example, I've done this, and so this catalog is created, which means I have defined the resources that I want to expose into this specific catalog, so that whenever an admin who is trying to create an access package, he or she will not be able to give access to resources other than the one that I've selected, right? So I go back to entitlement management, go to access package. Let's call it finance. And here I get to choose the catalog, right? So here I've chose the catalog, and you'll see here, I only see that specific group that I've selected, right? So I'm not seeing multiple groups or all the groups that are in my tenant. So you can imagine, right? I mean, when the customer asks you these kind of questions, we can achieve this using the catalog capability. Same with applications, right? We have just that application that I've selected as part of the catalog. Same SharePoint website. So yeah, and we all are aware that we will decide, or the admins will decide, what sort of access package they want to provision, right? Is it for the users in the directory? Is it for the external users, or is it for just for the admins to give direct assignment, right? Wherein the users will not be able to self-service. We have multiple approval flows. We have email notifications, as well as we can attach verified ID into the access package. Basically, you need to register an issuer. I believe someone asked this question related to verified ID, wherein, hey, is verified ID is used only for onboarding the users into Entra ID, or you can use it as other flows, as part of other flows as well. So it can be definitely used for other flows, whatever customer wants to.
It's just the flag. It's just the flag in Agnes. If Agnes needs to reach out to PME for the DCI check.
I will mute this participant.
And if you set this flag, then it will.
I thought that question is for me. Seems participant is talking to someone else. Okay, perfect. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, I was talking about the verified ID, right? So verified ID can be leveraged as part of access package. You just need to define the issuer, and as soon as you define the issuer, you'll get to see the issuer in this particular list. This use case kind of aligns with the user onboarding into the access package. For example, a lot of customers ask, hey, I want to do a partnership with an external organization, and I want to make sure that the users from those external organizations are verified kind of in a most secure way. And I want to use verified ID for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin up an access package. I'm going to share that access package with that external organization. And I want those users to get onboarded into this package, but they should, let's say, use face check, or they should use their verified credentials to get onboarded into access package. So this is how we do it. We register the issuer, and we configure that here and roll out the access package. And when the users tries to onboard themselves, they'll be challenged with the VID check, and they will have to pass that. There's another aspect that I talked about. When you request an access for access package, admin has the capability to ask for certain questions. I'm sure we are all aware of this. Basically, you can ask, hey, where are you based at? Which country? Why do you need access? And stuff like that, so that it can be recorded into the system, and they can probably save that information somewhere for their compliance reasons, right? This is one of the aspects. Second aspect is attributes, especially for guest users onboarding again. A lot of customers require the users themselves to give certain information about themselves as part of attributes. It can be as simple as country, which country you're part of. So we will define the attributes here. And as soon as the user is asking for the access package, user will fill the country as the attribute value, and it will be stamped against that particular user identity in the Entra ID. So pretty automated, and the admin can take decision based on that particular attribute, right? This is another aspect of this. And someone asked this question into the chat, hey, can we have access reviews built on top of entitlement management? Yes, we do. It is part of the creation workflow, wherein when you create the entitlement management access package, you can build the access view on top of it, and you can do the access recertification for that particular access package that you have created. Another important aspect that I want to cover as part of this presentation is the extensibility that we have with the birthright access. I believe this capability is still in public preview. Not sure if it got updated, but yeah, last time I checked, it was in public preview. Basically, whenever a user is onboarded into the system and the user gets the birthright access, admin might want to make some external calls to some external systems, right? It can be as simple as, let's say, creating a ticket, or maybe adding or saying, delivering an automated message into the Teams channel, saying, hey, hi, user XYZ has joined to this particular team, welcome him or her, right? So you can leverage the custom extensions. Basically, you need to create a logic app for this. When I say custom extension, it means a logic app, right? Because whatever extensibility that we are doing with our governance piece, we are doing that with our logic apps. Wherein you know that logic app is a low code, no code solution, which can make call to any external system, be it like, let's say, applications like Salesforce, Teams, SharePoint. You can invoke your own workflows using that, right? So here I select, okay, I want to invoke this custom extension, means the logic app when the request is approved. I'm going to choose what logic app I want to create. I have certain logic apps that I'm going to show in next slides, but I just choose which logic app I want to create. So what will happen here is, as soon as the user has got the birthright access, meaning the user has become part of this specific access package, the logic app is going to get triggered, and that logic app is going to make that external call to that external system that admins have configured, and it'll become as part of onboarding workflow, right? It can be maybe creating a ticket in SAP. So a lot of example. A lot of customers have a lot of other use cases that can be solved as part of this specific solution. Now, you might have a question that, hey, we have extensibility as part of our joiner mover lever flow. We also have extensibility in the birthright access, right? So why different? Because these two capabilities do different purposes, right? Birthright access or access package is specifically for self-service to certain applications, or it is specifically for birthright access, right? Now, if you have a workflow that needs to be invoked during the birthright access, then it's best to use the extensibility in the birthright access situation itself. If you have some extensibility workflows that you want to invoke as part of JML workflows, then it is better to use the extensibility logic app solution within the JML workflow. So yeah, that's all about the extensibility or the logic app workflow within the birthright access solution. I'll just quickly show you one of my access package. I hope my logic app is still working. Let's see it. If it doesn't, then I have certain logs that I can show it to you. So here what I'm doing is I'm giving access to the user manually as part of birthright. But you can imagine when you club the API-driven provisioning aspect that Maggie just explained, wherein you are bringing in the user from your HRMS solution via the API-driven provisioning, and you have all those attributes stamped, and you have created this access package wherein the trigger mechanism is based on an attribute, wherein it says that department equals to IT. Then the user will automatically be placed into this particular access package, and as soon as the user gets placed in this access package, the custom extension will invoke and will make that external call, right? So I'm going to choose a random user, maybe. Let me see. This. Okay. I'll say add. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for us to see the logs, but yeah, let me see if I can. And one of the way to check if the extension has been invoked or not is to see the logs. Packages, birthright access. So I have just done this. The logs has not created yet, but I'll just show you some old logs that I have. See all the actions that are happening here. There should be a log for my access, my logic app as well, which is getting invoked. Not sure if it got purged or there are many logs got buried inside. Yeah, basically, it will show it here, wherein it will say that the custom extension has been invoked, and what is the status of that. Right. So I'll just go back to my screen just to see if I am on track from the content perspective. So yeah, this is the same thing that I talked, right? I mean, we have extensibility in two situations. One is using the access package, and another one is using the JML flow. I'm going to talk about the JML flow in the upcoming slides. I've just showed you the custom extensions as well, how it is configured. Now I'll just quickly jump into the lifecycle workflows. ID governance, lifecycle workflows. Those who are completely new into the lifecycle workflows, it's basically Microsoft's joiner, mover, lever solution, wherein you can configure these flows, and we have given certain templates, which you can leverage to configure the flows. You just need to choose which is relevant to you. Let's say, for example, onboard new hire employee. I'll just select this. I'm going to give some meaningful name to it, and I'll select when I want this flow to be triggered. Right now, you can imagine the end-to-end flow, wherein we have brought the user from on-premises or from the HRMS solution using the API-driven provisioning. We configured the access package, created the auto-assignment policy. As part of the auto-assignment policy, the IT user got placed into the IT birthright access. And I have also kept a trigger of attribute change, or let's say group membership change. If you want to select as group membership change, probably you'll keep a group as part of the birthright access. If you want to do attribute change, then you can have as part of your user onboarding workflow itself. As soon as the user's attribute is IT, then this workflow will trigger. Or the user's department is here. I'll select department is IT. The workflow will trigger. I'll just mention what department I want to select. Sorry, someone is unmuted. Please go on mute. So here it says that if the user has department as marketing, this workflow should be triggered for those sort of users, right? So pretty simple. This is the important aspect. Since this is a onboarding workflow, so of course I want to send a welcome email. I want to enable the user account as soon as the user is onboarded into my system. I want to add users to certain groups, and the important aspect is I want to make a call to some external system, right? Let's say user has been onboarded. I want to provision that user, let's say, or create a ticket for that particular user. I want to provision that user into some specific group, let's say some company location group, let's say Bangalore IT, or let's say London ITT, those sort of groups, right? Or it can be as complex as making a call to some external systems, like SAP, Salesforce, which will probably give some I don't know, I mean some permissions or some tasks to the users into those systems, right? So here I'll select the custom extension. what I need to do is I need to, of course, define and create a logic app for this, which I have already created for this one. And I need to select that specific logic app. But you can see here I have 2 logic apps which I have already configured, and I'll just select those apps and just save it. Right. I have one pre-created workflow that I want to show it to you. Let's say, for example, what I'll do is I will run it on demand, because workflows by default are invoked every 3 hours, but you can minimize that invoking time to 1 hour. It cannot go less than that, right? So since we have that limitation, it's not limitation, I mean, because the join and move lever flow doesn't need to be invoked every minute as the API-driven provisioning happens. So yeah, that's why we have that specific configuration. So I'll just select, let's say, same user again. I'll say run workflow. So what this is doing is, and you can see it as well. See, this workflow is in progress. So whatever tasks that I've selected, which is welcome email, welcome user, enable the account, add users to the groups, and run a custom extension. Basically, this workflow is invoking all these tasks. It is making a call to this logic app because it knows about that logic app. It can make that say post call or that call to this logic app, and that logic app, based on the triggers that are configured in the logic app, it is going to trigger those workflows. So this is queued, which means it is happening. I'll just refresh. We're going to see the status. So it looks it is completed now. Let's see. Now, since it is showing green, that means all the tasks have been completed successfully. Let us see if my logic app has done something or not. So let me pull my logic app. This was the logic app I believe I've configured. And yeah, this logic app has been triggered right now, right? Just like 50 seconds ago. So you can see this logic app. What this logic app is doing is it's actually it's a small post message doing in the Teams. So let me see if I have Teams configured. This user, and it will show this message that you can see 4:30 my time. Right now it's 4:32. It has basically posted a message, and you can imagine it can be a message as welcome guys, welcome XYZ to the team, and here are your training documentation. Here is your onboarding plan, and this is your mentor, and this is how you can do the onboarding to the team, right? So Logic App has, as part of the JML situation, triggered this message and posted into the teams. Going back to tech. Now, I want to show this slide just to show you the scale of integration that you can do with the Entra ID governance, right? Customer will come to you and ask, hey, okay, Entra ID governance gives me end-to-end governance solution. Like I said, I have a lot of extensibility use cases. How are you going to do that? If you club the entire solution right from what Stacy, Maggie talked about, right? And eventually, if you'll also come to know about the entire Entra Suite as a package in the subsequent sessions as well, and how you can fit the Entra ID governance into entire Entra Suite piece, right? I mean, right from giving access to a private application into a, let's say, just-in-time manner, onboarding that user, giving a self-service to the user, gaining access to specific applications, specific group or specific teams, SharePoint site. So you can imagine the end-to-end Entra Suite solution and how governance fits into that, right? We can also have employee onboarding, any HR source using API-driven provisioning. And as soon as the user is provisioned, that user gets placed into birthright access, and using the extensibility, you can make call these to external SaaS applications, and using the lifecycle workflows, the user can be onboarded into the system automatically. The user is changing the department. The user can be moved from one department to another department, making sure that accesses from the previous department are revoked as part